everybody. Welcome to Spyder Trap. Any first timers here to Spyder Trap? All right, handful, good. A lot of smart, really fun people hang out here all the time, and we always have beer and pizza all day long, so just stop in and see what's going on. Anybody old enough that also played Pitfall as a kid on Atari? Some Pitfall fans? All right, cool. I know some of you are like, what the hell is that? So I'm sure there's a Pitfall app for your phone. You can download it and play 80s classic games. So I kind of wanted to share kind of some broad overview things and kind of put it together into like 10 things to avoid. Some of them are very high level, and I also wanted to be able to relate. Some of you work in the agency world like us. Some of you might be on the client side and have different conversations with how to accomplish some of these things. So kind of wanted to meet a diverse audience with what some of these things are. So as we all know, as Scott alluded to, and thank goodness my presentation just wasn't only on Google, making an announcement that mobile matters in their algorithm. But obviously, roughly 3 months ago, they drew a line in the sand and said, hey, April 21st, we're going to be doing something about this. The one thing that I thought was really unique about that is one of the first times where they actually announced an algorithm update. For a majority of others, Panda, Penguin, Pigeon, everything else, they've never made an announcement with it. So it really was aimed to try to motivate those that are out there. And I just read, I don't know where to cite the source, but that reported it, but it was Google who stated it, that across the web as a whole for all the sites they index, so think about that, right? We're talking, millions if not billions. They saw a 4.7% increase from the announcement time until April 21st. So they made a pretty big dent by putting that out there with some scare tactics and telling people to get prepared with what they're doing. So the warning shot that we started to see early, right, is if you do a search on your mobile phone, you see the little mobile-friendly gray snippet that appears in front of that result. And that was the announcement on the Webmaster Tools blog, letting you know that this was coming, that they're paying attention to it, and really wanting the user to understand a much better experiences at their hands at a mobile device. The tool, if you need to look if a site's friendly to mobile or not, hopefully you already know this, but the URL is below at their Webmaster Tools /mobile friendly. So let's go through the 10, right? So this is a super big one, but is still very prevalent, right? Your company, the client you're working with, whatever else, is still not mobile friendly, and there's absolutely no plan, right? There isn't a timeline, a budget, something that's going to determine it or whatever else. like, yes, this is the most giant pitfall at all. So even if you're not, that's okay. A large part of the web still is not mobile friendly, but absolutely get a plan into place. And hopefully, if you're somebody having that argument around your office, take a look at, you have all this artillery now to Google is demanding this, and finding out who works in marketing and analytics and understanding how many people come from mobile devices and come from Google, and do we want to be messing with that or having an impact from that. So make sure you pay attention to those things and work to get a plan into place. This one I used to get asked all the time, and it's dissipated a little bit, right? But there's always someone, apps are the darlings of the executive crowd, right? And they're like, I don't want to mess around with mobile web and whatever else. We need an app, because an app is sexy. It's an icon on their phone. We need to have that. We need to see ourselves. So the biggest thing I stress to people when they bring this up is the mobile web is ubiquitous, right? No matter what type of device. You don't have to worry about building an app for Android and building an app for iOS and different devices and everything else. The mobile web is accessible anywhere. To further that argument, as we start getting into more and more wearable technology, we started to see it with Google Glass, we now have Apple Watch, but content really is a stream, and the type of device that you view it on and where is going to change. We've all seen in plenty of futuristic movies, right? The guy wakes up in the morning and goes to his bathroom mirror and taps on it, and up comes the internet and his forecast and his news and everything else. So we really want to assume that content will continue to morph and be part of all kinds of different things. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have some type of surgery at some point in the future where I can be like R2-D2 and just like beam the internet to people because they're always asking me questions about it. So that'd be really helpful for me. All right, responsive design. We've heard for a number of years that responsive is the way to go, right? We've had the behemoths kind of support it, but for a lot of people it gets really scary. It's not exactly straightforward. Your developers, if they haven't worked with it before, are a little bit scared off by it. Those who don't understand it are a little bit scared off by it. How do we adhere to all these things? People are telling me it's slow and it's bulky and it doesn't work right, and what can I do? So really a lot of it is to overcome those things, and there's enough out there and enough sites, large scale, small scale, everything else to be able to demonstrate that it doesn't have to be confusing, and there's enough tutorials out there to walk you through it. So for those of you, if there is anyone here that hasn't ever heard the term responsive web design, I'd be surprised at this point, but really understand is it's a fluid site that, based on the browser detection, is telling the site to behave differently. So it's conforming to the device it's on. So you're building one website that will then adapt itself, whether it's on a tablet, a smartphone, a desktop, to display the information and make things work best for that specific environment and screen size that the user's on. A couple years back, both Google and Bing came out and said this is our preferred technical structure. We'd rather all sites are responsive. And let's just face it, it's easier on them to understand content and what's out there. Google's always had a really big voice for a similar user experience, no matter what type of device you're on, between the web properties that you have out there. So if we take a look at where responsive has kind of gone, I want to say probably close to 4 years ago is when we built our first responsive website at Spyder Trap. And you learn a lot every time out that you build it. Dozens upon dozens of sites later, there's still little things and wrinkles that we run into. It's definitely not kind of a hobby development thing to get into. So if we look at stats from 2014 and looking at responsive websites between not responsive websites, you see the top 100 sites on the internet. And hopefully I don't have to provide any perspective for you guys, right? Billions of websites. So when you talk about the top 100, you're talking about some pretty big behemoths. Only sitting at roughly 11% right now. The joke I like to insert here is if we can just pick off one a year, in 90 years, all the sites will be responsive in the type 100, right? That's fabulous. You guys need more beer. All right. Next, if we look at the top 1,000, we see a really significant increase, right? 18% and nudging close to 20% of those sites in 2014 utilized responsive. And then if we jump out to the top 10,000, we see nearly 19%. So if we look at this in comparison from 2013 to 2014, you start to see the adoption and the growth is there, right? A number of different things that have happened from sites, search engines like Google and Bing supporting it, more and more sites being out there, more and more developers getting familiar with it, designers getting familiar with it, and working in conjunction with the developers to avoid a lot of the hassles. We've definitely seen a large scale growth in that. Obviously it would be interesting to see how 2015 is affected with such a hard line drawn in the sand with Google's latest algorithm update. There's two other formats besides responsive that I won't go deep into. I'll touch on a couple things with. One is obviously a standalone site, right? So an M. site. This was more prevalent 5-6 years ago, where you have a completely different set of HTML and files that end up ruling what's there. You'll have an auto redirect, so the website understands you're coming in from a mobile device, and now it's switching you over to this mobile version with it. And then you also have a hybrid. You run into this a lot in larger or organizations that have technology challenges. So larger companies will go through and start making certain sections. So I know QVC started, I think, last year, peeling off certain sections of their site and making it responsive, while a large portion of the rest of the site was in a standalone format. And sometimes you just have technology that won't play nice with a responsive environment, but the hybrid we don't see as much with anymore. So one of the things, especially with the M. that you have to look out for, and this is your next pitfall, is you have redirect or other technical issues. Redirect especially, right? Because when you have responsive, you have one URL that Google indexes, and it doesn't matter what type of device you're on. But when you have the same content, say you have a 10-page website, you have those 10 pages on desktop and those 10 pages on mobile site, you have 20 URLs for those 10 pages of content. So you actually have to use the right rel tags to be able to let them know that you have the same content, one in a mobile version and one in a desktop version. And we see a lot of people mess that up. One of the easiest ways to mess it up is they will point all of their desktop pages to the mobile home page if somebody comes in on a mobile device. So even if you're going to a second, third, or fourth level, you automatically get kicked to the home page. Google doesn't want to see that. They want a one-to-one relationship with what that content is related to. And then with your relative tags, what you want to set those up to do on the desktop side is let them know there's an alternate version on the mobile site, and then you need to set up a canonical tag from the mobile site back to the desktop site. One of the best things that you can do, it makes for great bedtime reading, is go through the developer's guide for smartphone sites at Google. So, huge resource. They're calling out all kinds of ways to handle everything from JavaScript to your CSS files to images to everything else. So just about any technical or coding pitfall you can make, the answer or how to do it right or what to avoid is going to be in this developer's guide that's there. So this is one of those that you want to bookmark. Anytime you have an issue with mobile, you're going to want to go to that URL, and chances are you're going to get that answer. So one other thing that Google has said in the past, speed and performance matter to them. They have this beautiful futuristic goal as soon as they get self-driving cars out there and turn our world upside down with that, is they want every page on the web to load in under 1 second, right? So speed and performance really matters to them because it doesn't eat up as much of their resources, as well as it's a great user experience for the user that's out there. So a lot of times, especially if you don't understand the pitfalls of responsive and different things like that, you can really kind of create a quagmire. So what does Google do to make it easy for you? They build you a testing tool so you can understand what the speed of your site is. So with that, it's very simple. You go and plug in your URL, and then it'll kick you out both a mobile and desktop speed factor. They dumb it down for us and turn us into a 1 to 100 scale. To get a nice little green sticker here, Google wants to see you at 85 to 100. My stance on this has been, since it came out, is to be knowledgeable of it. Don't be a low number, but don't obsess too. For most organizations or the work you're doing, if you're so focused on getting it to an 85 or 90, I just have to think that there's 100 other problems you probably have with your content or conversions or analytics or whatever else that you're not getting to. So while it's good to be aware of it, definitely don't obsess about it. But what does make it nice is it's able to translate into something that people can understand, right? Because if you walk up to somebody and say our mobile site is slow, they're like, well, how slow? What do you mean? Miles per hour? Like, what goes on with that? So this is an easy way to take a third-party resource and put it together. And what's really nice is it gives you kind of 3 different categories. A should, so these are the things that are definitely, that you should get to, consider fixing, and then the ones that you passed, right? And what's nice is you click any of these show how to fix, and it's going to give you a drop-down, and again, back in the developer resources for how to fix this. So I'm sure your developers would really like it when you give them a nice to-do list. So you can go and click on that, build that out, and be like, hey, here's how you failed doing this, and here's what you need to do to correct it. Damn it. It gets a lot of traction. You might want to bring beer when you bring that tool. One of the other things when you look at, I found through trial and error and loading a lot of different things, is images matter a lot in the mobile speed test. So be very cognizant of some of the things that your designers are doing when they're creating designs, because what can look beautiful on a desktop and maybe be a large PNG with a transparent background can then choke the crap out of the mobile site. So I've seen one image affect their scoring system by as much as 20 points on what goes on with it. So be very cognizant of those images. What's nice is when you kick the drop down on the images, so I ran this one for Caribou here, not to pick on them, but just a brand everyone knows. It's going to give you the URL specifically to what, nice, good work, to what each image is. I was looking to see if somebody passed out already. I was going to be like, good work. Usually we wait until the second presentation to pass out. But it'll tell you which individual images that you can compress and what you can do differently with them. So again, gives you a super nice cheat sheet that you can go through and work through those images. This is a really great way to get your designers and developers working together, so your designers also understand some of the things they create and to avoid some of those pitfalls that are there. Another tool that I like to use a lot is called feedthebot.com/mobile. So Patrick Sexton put this tool together. So he's brought a couple of tools in, like the Google Page Speed Insights tool is wired into this as well. But it also gives you a number of other things that take a look at to how many CSS files you have. So it's helping you understand all the external calls that are going out, and those are also, again, things that can slow down your site speed and performance. It's going to let you know if you have certain files that are blocked or not, how things are sitting with the robot text files. So there's probably about 6 different tools and reports that are all coupled into this one report. It doesn't give you as much breakdown with the things that you should do, but it definitely helps give you a score to some of the pieces from the Google Page Speed Insights test, as well as some of the others that are there. One that isn't specific to mobile, but a lot of times it helped me troubleshoot things, is Pingdom. And so tools.pingdom.com. So if you run this in, they have a couple of different things that you can really start to understand. Their first report that isn't up right now is called a waterfall. So it'll show you an order of how things load. So you can start to see where the bottlenecks are once it comes into a page and loads it. This is going to be much more helpful for your responsive sites. Obviously, if you have an MDOT site, you can plug that in specifically, but your responsive all uses the one URL. And then it's also going to let you know what's using the most amount of resources and kind of giving a grid to where that sits and what your troubleshooting is. So in running StarTribune.com through this, browser caching really hit them pretty hard. And it gives you like where you sit with others too, so let them know the Star Tribune site is slower than 97% of all tested websites. That's on there. So, but that's what happens when all you want to do is serve up 700 pounds of ads and 1 ounce of a news story. All right. Number 5, you have no insight, to your mobile users. I also like to call out Wall Street, 1987. This was the first time a mobile phone was in a movie. So, how pimpin' was Michael Douglas there? So if you're not taking a look at what might be different about your mobile users, how does it change their context, what they're doing, what they need, and everything else, you're definitely ignoring some of the main things that you should be looking to make unique to the mobile experience. So one of the best things that you can do is segment your already existing analytic traffic, right? Create a segment for mobile traffic and what they're doing. A couple years back, we created, and I still use it with a lot of people, for Spyder Trap. There's a link to that. So we have a dashboard you can automatically download that is both a local and a mobile segment for you. And then Ed Reese at 6-Man Marketing, who I speak with at Local U, also has 2 or 3 different dashboards for mobile as well. So this is one of those easy things you can do where you just download the dashboard into your analytics profile and you're off and running with segmented traffic from mobile. So here you can start to see, are your mobile users using different pages? Are they completing different tasks? Is there something that's different about them than your desktop user? And then how do you need to address that, right? Is it content? Is it usability? Whatever might have you. Another thing that you can do is, before you're creating some of the things, right? Here's a couple of tools that we use at Spyder Trap to kind of prove or create some stronger evaluation around what we're doing. So Usability Hub, does anybody use Usability Hub? So it's great, 3 different tools in one, right? They have 5-second test, nav test, and click test. So you can put your prototypes or your designs up into here, and then where you basically send it out to a sample audience. You can also send it or share it socially for free and get people to respond, but it'll give you heat maps and statistics with what you've asked people to do, right? So if you tell them, hey, here's this 4-step process, I want you to go through here and try to buy this product. It will go and count where they're tapping in specific areas and report that back to you. So instead of just thinking you're smart and making some assumptions, or this is the standard, or this is how this other site does it, you can actually put these concepts together, put them out in the test, and have validation to prove it. One of the other things that we use a lot, I don't know why the logo didn't show up on this, Envision app. Anybody else in here an Envision app user? Right, so Envision app is fabulous. It's free. It's a wireframing tool that allows for all kinds of collaboration. Basically allows you to turn your wireframes into clickable prototypes, and it works on any device. So you can load it on your iPhone, tap through the screens, and whatever else. So again, before you even get to design and you're messing with stuff that might be a little bit more labor intensive or get people really caught up on colors and shapes and everything else, you can prove the flow and what the usability is of the product before it gets there. So envisionapp.com is a really fabulous and free product. And lastly, I'm guessing Angie's going to touch on this stuff a little bit more, so I'm not going to spend the time, but understanding in your mobile audience how proximity and context matter to them, right? And the easiest way I always put this to people is, yes, we've had the age-old saying for websites all the time of content is king. Well, in mobile, context and proximity is king. These are the things that govern what's going to be important to a user. All right, number 4, navigation is unclear. And there's a number of different ways that this can be handled, but one interesting thing that I like to talk about is the Hamburger Menu, right? And I don't know, a couple of these images didn't transfer your machine. So Hamburger Menu, right, the 3 lines that we're all used to seeing at the top of a mobile. Well, actually some of the studies done found out that close to 90% of the people don't even know what that means or what it stands for. So here's a common one where we're jaded by our industry, right? We know what it means and we like cool little shortcuts and everything else. But a lot of people have a hard time figuring that out. So depending upon the audience that you're looking or who's going to be using your site, you want to consider, just how much you use certain things that are symbols or iconic or whatever else. I can only hope this continues to get better over time. There's obviously some pretty large products like Facebook and Google and everything else that utilize it. But again, if you're going to a general audience, it might not be your best bet. So at the link there, they actually post the results of a number of tests. What they actually found to work best is when you use the word menu and then the 3 lines of the hamburger menu. So calling it out, being straightforward, being specific is still what works best. Don't make people think, right? Make it as easy for them as possible. The third one, right? I know many of you probably woke up that day if you cared about mobile and you wonder, would the world come to an end today? Google said it was. And especially I love when we hype it up with Mobilegeddon and flaming phone pictures all over search engine land and everything else. But all right, as we found out, the world didn't stop. So, what did we learn, right? We understand that it's a continuous rollout to what's going on with it. The easiest way I put it, if there is kind of a volume level on this filter, my guess is it's turned down pretty low right now, and they're still giving people more time. They got what they wanted out of it. They got a lot of press, a lot of PR, they made people aware of it, they kind of drew a line in the sand and say we're going to do something with it, and then there'll be a few casualties and a few having to say what they've lost traffic and what's gone on, and that'll continue to kind of bleed down to people, and they'll kind of keep turning it up a little bit more. The biggest thing to understand out of it is mobile usability is a ranking factor now. So in that same PageSpeed Insights test, they also have a user experience test. And you could see this coming because a year and a half ago, the user experience test got added as just a beta. And then November of last year, they took it out of beta and rolled it out. And then funny, 4 months later, now they say, okay, user experience is going to matter. They gathered enough data, they fine-tuned the tool, they understand how it works. And it really just looks at kind of 5 main areas to what's their tap targets, size of the viewport, configured, avoiding plugins, everything else. And again, the simple 100 out of 100 score is what you're looking to achieve here. There's a lot less variable in the usability, so it's much more likely to get 100 is a very shootable and achievable goal. So if we take a look at, we don't get to take a look at this at all. Well, that's a bummer. So if you want to, if you're bored at home, or right now bored with me, if you pull up a site like Devani's.com, nice people, local, pizza, no mobile site, right? They fail massively. They get a 45 or 50. I'm sorry, Sarah, but they do. So anyway, just one example there, but it gives them all kinds of things that they can work on to fix. Sweet. We should have proofed this after we moved it to your computer. I'm gonna blame Angie because she had to have her presentation on her computer. So anyway, what I wanted to outline here is part of 2 months ago I spoke at Local Up at Moz. And a lot of that had to deal with the pigeon update and how it affected things with mobile. So well over a year ago, I did a study based on 10 different search terms related to things local and what the mobile result landscape was. Just kind of what are the different types of results that were out there. And the reason even using local terms for this is relevant is because local ends up being 55% and growing the intent of mobile searchers, right? When we get back to the slide before, proximity matters. Most of the time with your phone, you're searching for something that is near you, a destination you're going, a destination related to where you're going to be, all of those pieces, right? So when we took a look at those 10 terms, here's kind of what we ended up with in 2014 to 2015, right? We saw an increase in news blogs and in-depth articles popping up from across there. We saw a little bit dip in actual websites itself. So your, momstore.com, boblawyer.com, the individual website of the company, we saw a little bit of a dip. Directory, just a little bit too. Directory is still a very strong Yelp play in local. Their category landing pages and individual profile pages play out very strong. PPC, a little bit of an uptake, but local really got hit the hardest, right? And that's because local took from, it used to be the 7 map pins, the 7-pack that's there, and now it's in a pane view. You get 3 results and it's in a pane and you have to swipe left to right for those specifically. So number 2, don't miss out on where the mobile connects your customer and your business, right? So people should be thinking holistically, whether you're a B2C or a B2B, how does the device come into play? Are you using mobile to gather feedback from your customers? Are you part of their decision-making process? Can they purchase or submit intent within your phone? So a lot of people fail to look at it that way, like where are they, what's their intent, what are they doing, and does my device enable them to do those things? So you really have to look at the mobile device as a conduit, and it's important because it's the always on them, always available, always online device that's there. I'm not even going to guess what that other slide was. Wow, that does it. So there's a nice photo of somebody viewing the world through their phone. So my last thing that I would really stress to everyone is really take the time to look at everything through a mobile lens, right? Your website, your email marketing. There's no reason not to be using responsive templates for email marketing now. On average, for our B2B clients, we see over a 50% open rate on mobile devices for email. Depending upon the type, for a consumer good, we might see anywhere from 15 to 25%. So much less, but all continuing to be on the increase. So email's another one. For those of you who work in social initiatives and everything else, understand how social plays, right? Facebook and mobile is their biggest platform that's out there. Instagram is completely mobile with creating photos and publishing them out there. Pinterest has a huge rise in it. So understand the things you're doing and where mobile fits into the social pieces, the web pieces, the email, and search as well. So with that, I'm wrapped up. Sorry for a few absences in a few of my slides, but you can blame Angie. I don't want to take the blame for that. And Sarah, you have to wait to the end. We'll do questions at the end with both Angie and I. Sorry, you have to wait.